Good evening. And if you're just tuning in, you are listening to The Angel Rock. I am your host, Lorilei Potvin. A little bit about myself. I'm a Canadian clairvoyant medium. I'm a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher and mentor, and I'm also a registered nurse. And if you've never been to The Angel Rock before, welcome, as well as our returning guests. On my show, I say cover all aspects of the supernatural and esoteric, as well as I have my guests that I have on come from all walks of life, whether professionally or extracurricularly. They're making a positive change for humanity. Now, before I introduce our wonderful guest, I want to remind you, if you are listening and you want to watch the show, please come over to United Public Radio Network's YouTube channel. Forgot we have a different name now. Sorry. I'm a little frazzled. I'll explain in a few minutes why. Sorry, it's under the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, or UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. Now, if you're leaving comments on my Facebook profile, I can't see them. Every week we have these fantastic comments and I don't get to see them. So let me introduce my guest when I can find some clean glasses here. And I want to thank her because she's coming to us from over in the UK. Now, her name is Jenny Light. She's a teacher of meditation and yoga on Insight Timer, a spiritual healer, an author, inspirational speaker, and an artist. She had a Kundalini awakening as a small child and has had a passion for yoga from the age of 9. She taught herself to meditate at 14 and has been teaching yoga for 20 years. Now, I won't read her whole bio. It's amazing. It's incredible. We're going to talk about that. Welcome, Jenny. How are you?
Hi, I'm so pleased to be here.
I'm pleased to have you. And poor Jenny, we have, as often happens, I want to give a huge shout out to Gavin Lee Davies, who sends me incredible authors like Jenny. And I never get to meet these wonderful people face to face, if you will, on camera until we come on the show. And tonight, boy, was I cutting it close, you guys. And I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late. As you know, hey, Dave, welcome. Dave Petrella and the chat there. He's been on our show before. He's an astrologist, a biologist, really interesting guy and a great supporter of the show. Anyways, last week we had a scheduling snafu, mostly my fault. Well, it was my fault. I shouldn't say mostly, it was. And so I decided to go live anyways. And we talked about many things. I did some readings online. And then I pulled out my resin that I'm doing every spare minute because I'm going to be launching a resin store with a spirituality line and everything else under the sun line. And of course, what did I do? 5 o'clock, I mixed up this huge pile of resin. I thought, oh, I got lots of time. Yeah, and then I looked up as I'm getting rid of the bubbles, it's like 5 to 6. So I was running like crazy. So thank you, Jenny. Thank you. Because you've never been on StreamYard before, right?
No, I haven't. No, so yes, I'm a newbie.
Well, you did it great because believe me, she just popped on and she was waiting for me. We've got Art Greenfield. I'm not sure. We'll see what other comments they leave there, whether we've got somebody that's spamming us or what they're doing. They're leaving links here. We'll see. I don't know yet, Art. Don't mean to be disrespectful. We'll see what else you post there. So, Jenny, what did I miss from your bio? Tell us all a little bit more about yourself. I love your accent, and I have an accent
Oh,
to you
thank
as well,
you.
I know.
Yes, I where do I start? I don't know. Do I start now? Do I work backward, or do I start when I childhood and work
Well,
forward?
you were talking, a lot of people don't know what a Kundalini awakening is. Now, I do, but for our listeners, what is a Kundalini awakening and how did you know that you had one?
Well, I didn't as a child. I was 5 or 6, and I
Wow,
did.
that's
I
early.
didn't. I didn't know what it was.
Hmm.
I used to have these very strong, powerful sensations that ran up my spine. It was like
Hmm.
a it was like hot lead. It was really,
Oh,
really powerful going up the spine, and then I would lose control of movement of my body, and then I just was in this expanded space where I was at the same one in the same time as vast as the room and as small as a seed. I felt the tininess of myself,
hmm.
but I had no words to describe it. It would it would go as, you know, I don't know how long, whether it was like that for hours or minutes, I don't know. And then I could feel the heat going back down the spine again. It was only when I was an adult and I'd went to do my yoga teacher training that I was like, oh, right, that's what happened to me as a child. And the same thing happened when I did my yoga teacher training.
So what does Kundalini awakening mean for people that may not understand what that means?
Well, it's an expanded state of awareness. The Kundalini it's an energy that wraps itself, you know, as a potential is dormant at the base of the spine, 3.5 times wrapped around the base of the spine. But at certain stages of spiritual development, that power, that energy will come up the spine and over the crown of the head onto the third eye, the Ajna chakra. Anyway, I can only describe what it feels like, not what the theory is, but it was unbidden, shall I say. Nothing stimulated it, you know. I've read that sometimes people say that you can have like an injury or, you know, something happens to you that can bring this power up. Well, I'm in the camp that disagrees with that. I think it's somehow a stage in spiritual development.
Yes.
And that I must be just carrying on from where I was in previous lives.
I have to agree with you. And everybody I've talked to about Kundalini awakening, whether on air or off air, I think we've all got a different idea. Now, the way I look at it is the one thing I really always say is what we perceive becomes what we become to believe, and it becomes a reality. So I have actually been working on that and with people, and people have had amazing results. So basically, the way I look at a Kundalini awakening, you mentioned some people say chakras, or I say chakras. Both ways are right, but we have these, if you will, invisible energy centers in the center of our body and many other places on our body.
Yes.
And it's almost like they're connecting, if you will, being able to run energy through the top and above, like the crown, and then we can get their star. So you know what I mean. Sorry, I wasn't looking at my extra chakras for the show tonight. But I always say, as human beings, I believe we're meant to run energy. So connecting to source, or whatever your belief is, higher power, and then grounding is so important, especially for human beings, and connecting. I call it Gaia. Some people, I tell them, if you want to imagine a rock in the center of the earth or what. Now, with Kundalini, it's almost like they all connect, and you can almost get that energy running up and forth quite effortlessly. But a lot of people describe it differently. Like you said, it felt like hot lava for you.
It was like hot lava. It was or hot lead. It was
lead.
It
You
was like
said
molten,
sorry.
It was like molten metal. But from what I've come to perceive, now this is not what I've read, but just what I've perceived. What I've come to perceive is that the process becomes less dramatic. It becomes less visceral over time, because I think, as you were saying, it's joining the dots between the main chakras on the spine. It's pushing through, but if it meets blockages, I think that's where you feel it'll only go so far. If it meets a blockage, it won't go any further. But if you've still got residual karma or stuff that's blocking in that chakra, then what it's going to do is it's going to sometimes it will come through, and it'll feel rough. It feels difficult. But what came with it, and I've had lots of people that email me because of their own awakenings that they've had a rough time. What came with it was an extreme sensitivity to others' energy coming close to me. Feelings of not being able to eat or drink because I was into an elevated state. I couldn't tolerate or didn't want food. And if I did, I vomited. This was for short periods. Not as a child, funnily enough, but as an adult. Yeah, and the room was spinning round, and it was very difficult at the time.
Yeah,
But
Dave added, from his perspective, it's called the quicksilver mercury of the body, the spinal cord fluid. And then he added, yes, if the channels of the body are clean, Kundalini will feel smooth. And when you were
yes,
speaking, I'm quite clairaudient, so I hear spirit quite a bit. And one of my guides, I don't know if they were trying to be facetious, but they said it's basically when all your stars are aligned. So everything's open and clear, and it's very interesting. I think you're the first person I've met that it's happened as a child, but it would make sense, right? Because we're so innocent where we are in development, energy, and what have you, right?
well, I don't think it's the innocence. I think, well, I think it's because this is what where I had reached in some previous life. I do have memory of um, sitting meditating over a valley, and and it's jungle, and I kind of intuitively knew it was India.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've only been to India as an adult, but as a
Right.
child, I kind of knew these things. Um, Anyway, it's strange to describe what happens when you're a
Mm-hmm.
child,
Mm-hmm.
because you didn't have the vocabulary to describe it then.
Definitely. I work with, from time to time, parents of children that, because I have quite an extensive background in the paranormal, not by choice, but it was kind of my reasoning for awakening, if you will. I always had the gifts there, but we lived in an extremely haunted paranormal house, and we left about 2 years before that, but just crazy stuff. But anyways, my whole point is working with children that can see spirit, and I believe most children can, especially young children and
Yes.
animals, that they don't have the words to express, right? Anything, even emotions, like when there's overwhelming emotions, or what have you, and that just comes with time, age, and experience, right?
Yes, I mean, it was really funny. My granddaughter, I've got several
Mm-hmm.
grandchildren, but when the middle granddaughter was 3, it was the funniest thing. I was reading her a story, and just nothing relating to the story. She just said out of the blue, "We don't have wings anymore."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Oh," I said, "Did you used to have wings?" "Yes." I said, "What did they look like?" She said, "They were pink."
Oh,
And I said,
wow.
"What colour were my wings?" And she said, "White with purple bits." But it's just the sweetest. Oh,
Wow.
she also did this. We don't have wings anymore. We've only got these. And she kind of looked at her wee fat chubby arms, and she said, "Just these."
Did
And
she tell you what she was referring to? Is she referring to like the fairy realm or angels, or
no, she
just
she didn't have a huge vocabulary.
got you? Hmm. Ah, into the minds of children, I'm telling you.
They come out with I mean, the age of 3 or 4, they're still remembering some things, but
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
beyond that, no. That
Hmm.
was funny. Yeah, I totally, believe that there is no end to our
I
existence,
agree.
and that this life is only a blip. It's only a very short
Millisecond in
yes, a
eternity.
millisecond in the
Hmm.
millennia of
Hmm.
our existence.
Hmm.
I'm using I'm using time terms to talk about
And there
something.
is none on
Time,
the other
yes,
side.
but when you live in a world of duality with a
Hmm.
finality of the body, you have to come to terms with. You use terms that can be, relative. It's the best you can do.
Hmm. Well, then to wrap your head around some of the deeper spiritual concepts, that you have enough evidential proof to know that there is truth to it, especially when we connect with the other side, I believe. or
Yes.
even through our own personal experiences, you know, and then thrown in with religious dogma. Like I was raised Catholic and sent to Catholic school and what have you. I no longer identify with religion. I'm highly spiritual. For me, I say my belief is God. I whatever other, and I accept whoever or whatever people's beliefs are. I always say it's not my job to judge, but it's like unwinding it, right? Because for me, in the beginning of all this, for example, hell, right? Hell and retribution and justice and all these things that we believe in as human beings. But as you study and through meditation, I find spirit will hold classes through meditation. That's where I want to go with this. And you start to unwrap it, and it really gives you pause for thought, doesn't it? And then to try and explain these things to people that maybe haven't quite thought of that yet. They still believe that there's a hell and, you know, people are going to pay, and not
Mm.
realizing with the millisecond that we're spending here in eternity what it really is, right?
Well, yes. I mean, this world is heaven or hell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it has lots of vibratory rates of being depending
Mm-hmm.
on
Yeah.
your spiritual development. And for some people, this world is hell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In fact, the challenges that we have in every second, we have, we have the left side of us, which is the ego side, that is
Mm-hmm.
throwing in negative comments. It's throwing in a spanner in the works,
Mm-hmm.
and everything that you try to achieve, there's resistance. And on the right hand side, you've got your heavenly connection. You
Yeah.
connect with God or the divine, whichever you'd like to term, and you're in every second of every day. You're being challenged to identify with the light or the dark.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, it's such hard work that for many people it really is hell.
Mm-hmm. No, I have to agree with you. And the way I forget it was a podcast I was listening to. It made a lot of sense to me. And you kind of see it in life too, you know, but then you get into the whole conversation about we choose this life, we choose our parents, we choose our experiences, our lessons we want to learn, and what have you. And, you know, I know I could be wrong. It's just my theory, but I believe that, and like I said, I really identified with this podcast, and they were talking about life being in a canoe, and as you try to paddle upstream, you know, when you're fighting what you'd really come here to do, and to understand the concept of oneness and unconditional love, what have you, right? And it just gets harder and harder, or life becomes hell. But even if you give pause, you stop and you breathe, eventually that current's going to start turning your boat downstream. And it seems the more, and I don't know if it always happens, because I know we have challenges built into our lives as well. But as we start to paddle downstream, the journey becomes easier because we start heading towards some of those lessons we've learned. Is those some of the concepts you've ever talked about or written about?
Yes, but interestingly, um, the river analogy of the river of life uh, is the easy route, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually top for tail what you've just described.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the kind of yoga philosophies that I've read about,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the easy route is to follow the current downstream.
Yes.
You're moving further away from source. The
Yes.
source, as in God, is at the head of the river, so you have to fight against the current,
Mm-hmm.
and that means you're actually fighting your own um, ego nature.
Mm-hmm.
You're overcoming, and there's this yearning and striving to get back to that source, that oneness.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a constant uh, sva dharma, which is this uh, striving to get back to source, to live the best that you can in any moment, to live from your soul
Mm-hmm.
self and not from the ego self, from
It
the
makes complete and utter sense to me. Absolutely. Now, you've written a new book. It's Awakening The Lotus of Peace, Yoga Meditation for Inner Peace. So what is that? Why did you pick that title? What are you trying to say with this book?
Well, inner peace is our true state of being.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not something to be, attained. It's only something to be realised, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
That peaceful state of being, the soul state of peace, is who we really are, and that resides in the heart. So we're awakening the lotus, and also lotus has all this symbolism of the highest kind of flower of being. Usually, the lotus is talked about as the crown chakra.
Yes. Yeah.
Usually, but in this one, I'm talking about the heart lotus opening and allowing all this peace to come out.
Mm-hmm.
What if we had no resistance, no feelings of enmity or fear or aggression towards anyone? And that means also making judgments on other people. What if we had none of those things and we were pure and clear in the heart, and all that emanated was a peace? Now, that is the peace that Gandhi had suggested to be the change that the world needs, to be that peace. So in this book, I'm teaching how to use yoga breath, to use meditation techniques, a bit of personal growth stuff, so spiritual exercises to get to know, to get to grips with that very pernicious ego self that's holding on, and these channeled meditations on peace to try and experience different states of peace.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I guess I'm going to ask you with no judgment. But are you suggesting then that we banish the ego? The reason I ask that is, just very quickly, is with one of my mentors, and it made a lot of sense coming from the old big pharma background, being a nurse, that the ego has a purpose to me. So she suggested we make friends with the ego because it's a part of who we are, the whole. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I don't think it should be fought in the way that it should be, because that which you resist persists.
Yes.
Right. So if you're fighting it, then it persists. Mm-hmm. No, it's merely to see the ego for what it is.
Yes.
Right. If there's a negative thought comes in, that's the ego. If there's a negative feeling comes in, that's the ego. Right? Mm-hmm. It's not you. And
sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I was reading Dave's comment.
I was too, and I thought, well, you were going to say something. So go. I'll read it in just a sec. I wanted to finish hearing what you were saying, and then.
So the ego has to be overcome, but not through fighting, but through realizing what the ego is and choosing the softer, gentler way of the soul. Mm-hmm. To operate through.
I think we're talking the same language, because when they said make friends with your ego, for example, when I do an Akashic Records practitioner session with somebody, we invite the ego to be a quiet participant observing from the side. So we invite it to feel like it's included. But again, I think we're talking the same language, but just using a little bit different analogies, because you're right. Recognizing what the ego is and what it's there for and why it's there. Like, it's the same thing with an appendix, right? We can get appendicitis. You'll hear from a surgeon, it's a piece of the body we don't need. Well, so far medicine has determined that it's a piece of the body we don't need, but it's got to be there for a reason. We just haven't, whether it's something from the past maybe that we no longer actively use or whatever, it's still part of who we are as a human being, right?
Yes, I think, as far as I know from my high school anatomy, it digests chlorophyll, which is plant matter. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, maybe as vegans we need it more. Who knows? Maybe.
Now, I have never heard that with science or anything, that it digests chlorophyll.
I never heard
wrong, that.
We're talking. I'm remembering 40 odd years ago.
I hear you. No, but you know what? That would kind of make sense. but when it gets inflamed or what have you, they take. I know oh, we've got another. Sorry, Art. That's a pretty long link. I don't think we can read it, unfortunately. But I guess I don't know what you were trying to search there, but I appreciate you including the link. I don't know if maybe you could find a shorter one because I'd love to see what you posted. I hear you. I'm going to look that up, Jenny, because just because I haven't heard of it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like that would make a lot of sense. It really, really would.
Well, I'm not a scientist, but I'm just
Mhm,
remembering from high school.
mhm.
But
I,
we'll come back to Dave's comment.
you're reading my mind. So do you want to read it or do you want me to read it?
Dave says, yes, very good. The 1,000-petaled lotus flower is the crown chakra. All of the chakras are referred to as having petals too. The number of petals refers to the number of energy outputs. Yes, so that they appear to be petals,
Mhm,
the way that they flow out. And the heart itself, though, it moves from just being the heart chakra with
mhm,
its 12 points of light, the Anahata chakra. It transforms into, in a stage of spiritual development, it transforms into this vast um, plexus of light. It's no longer just the 12 points of light. It is this vast energy that comes out. It's the heart is actually the center of all of the seven main
yes.
chakras. Right in the center is the heart,
Mhm,
and there are stages of the spiritual development that relate to that heart
mhm,
becoming purer and purer, starting from the dark heart and moving through to that pure heart, which is felt as just a pure energy. The ego has vanished at that
mhm.
point. Now we'll come back to the ego topic if you don't mind.
Not at all. I'm just going to
The
acknowledge Art here for a second. Thanks, Art.
yes,
Now I know what you were trying to post. I appreciate that. You said it's a list of 21 psychic abilities, and Mitzi Balivo says, thanks for sharing. So thank you for joining us, everybody. Really appreciate it. Go ahead. What were you going to say, Jenny? I apologize. I like to involve our people in the audience so they feel like they're part of the
absolutely.
show. Mhm. So what were you going to say?
The ego. Um,
You
sorry.
said you wanted to come back to it. So, well, what I'll ask you then, because you get people that will say uh, that this isn't possible, and I'd love to hear your thoughts because I think it is, anyways, is do you think inner peace is achievable? And I'm going to add to that sustainable for, throughout the lifetime without, if you will, the egotistical parts of things that we pull into life with everyday life.
Well, I'm going to challenge the word achieve
Mm-hmm.
because that suggests it's something that needs to be won or
Exactly.
attained in some way. But in actual fact, it's just dropping into that peace. It's realizing that it's always there, but we can't perceive that peace when we are so beset by all of the ego, busy, busy body, busy mind, busy emotions. Everything's like a storm inside.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you might be calm on the outside, if the inside is not calm, then you can't perceive that peace. So that state of peace is actually always there. It was the peace troubadour, James Twyman, that said, peace is always present, but sometimes hidden.
So, yeah, because not I think I know, I agree with you that I think that's our natural way of being. But for somebody, besides we want them to buy your incredible book, but what else could, no, we do, because I think it's a manual. Um, what other things can people do to get back to that natural state? Thank you. I used it on the banner. I forgot to tell you, but I always use people's books on the show banner so that if people are in a bookstore and they may not have seen the title, but they'll see the picture and they'll hit the subconscious, right? Where did I see that book?
It's a
So
beautiful cover, isn't it?
it's gorgeous. The colors, again, really embodying. inner peace, I
Yes,
believe. And
yes.
green being a healing color as well, I
Yeah, I
believe.
worked with two amazing artists for this book. One of them did the cover design
Hmm.
and she interlaced. This is Suze McCallum. I'll give her a wee plug. Um,
Good.
she interlaced the other artist's peace mandala
Okay.
through it as well. And the other one did hand drew peace mandalas the whole way through. If I can just show here.
Oh,
So every page,
beautiful.
every chapter has got another peace mandala. So they're just utterly beautiful. So
They
maybe give you.
are.
Anyway, that's my daughter that did that.
Ah, well, I'm glad. You should give her a plug on that. There's beautiful artwork. As I
Yes.
mentioned, being creative, if I'm not doing spiritual stuff or very social, so I love to talk to different people from around the world, even not just with the show, but off the air. If I'm not doing that, I'm doing something creative always because with meditation for me, I have a bad back and it would be very difficult for me to sit for
Mm.
an hour or two. So that's why if you see me moving around on camera, it's because I need to to reshift my balance here with my back. But so when I do meditation, sometimes if I have a busy day, I'll break it up throughout the day, little bits here, little bits there. Because once you practice, I find it's easier to get into a meditative state and faster. So I
Yes.
find with creation for myself, when it's quiet in the middle of the night and there's nobody bothering me, and you just clear your mind, and it just seems so natural. So what you started meditating really young, like at 14, and I was seeing from such Gavin's such a sweetheart, he sent such great notes. He said you had some spiritual experiences that you mentioned in your book too. So how do those all intertwine? Because you don't hear too many 14-year-olds that are practicing meditation, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, as I say, I kind of started with this expanded states of being that were there when I was 5 and 6. I
Right.
don't remember them when we moved house when I was 7, so it was when I was younger.
Hmm.
Uh, my father and my mother were into exploring Buddhism and
Oh, okay.
mystic Christianity, Hinduism. They were in their own spiritual search, and um, I chose to go vegetarian when I was 6,
Wow.
and the whole family we were given choices, but I already had made my choice
Hmm.
because I didn't want to eat anything that had to be killed for me to eat it, and
Hmm.
I don't think plants are quite the same, You have to eat something anyway.
Hmm. You do.
You don't
Hmm.
have to. I'll come back to that. But um, when I was 9, my mum started going to a yoga class.
Oh,
She
okay.
would come back, she would practice the yoga in the living room, and I loved to join in. I got I got a yoga book for children for my 9th birthday,
I
and I
love
never
it.
looked back. I went on to, I had a Richard Hittleman work plan. It was a month work plan. I don't know if you've heard it, 1960s, well, 70s, 80s. He's an American,
What was his name? It cut out for a minute. Sorry.
Richard Hittleman. Anyway,
It
whatever.
sounds
I
familiar.
had to get a workbook, and I used to work through this book of yoga exercises, and that was me. I had my own daily practice. Well, definitely from the age of 14, perhaps earlier than that. I'm not sure, and it just seemed natural that meditation had to come too, because that was the whole thing. He taught that you do this series of asana exercises, and you're opening the lungs and you're
Hmm.
expanding your lung capacity, and then you're moving into meditation. He made it a
Hmm.
journey, and I thought, well, meditation has to be it. But interestingly enough, his book wasn't very good. He had a book of yoga meditation.
Hmm.
It was indecipherable to me. I couldn't. work it out.
Right.
It didn't seem to be very well laid out or something, but I started using a book by Barry Long, who's an Australian meditation teacher. And his book was very simple. It was in a nutshell. There was hardly any pages in it. It was just do this,
Yeah.
do this, do this. And that made sense.
See, that's what I find with people, myself in the beginning with meditation. And had a teacher that was quite funny. She had a call-in show. This is years ago. And it was just so hilarious because she was live and she's turning red in the face. And she kept saying, because I kept saying, no, I'm so busy. You know, it's really hard to find time to meditate. And then, like I said, her face started to turn red and she's saying, I'm not saying that. No, no. And you can't hear any other voice. You can't hear anything. And she's just getting more and more embarrassed. And then she finally says, okay. She said, one of your guides and my guides has said, I need to say this to you. And they assure me that you will have a good sense of humor about this. She said, do you head to the restroom? I said, well, everybody does at least once or twice a day, or numerous times are in the restroom. And she said, well, we all have 5 minutes at least to ourselves. And that's a good place to start. But she was so embarrassed, and I'm kind of filtering what she said, but it was pretty funny. But, you know, like I said, to hear of a 14-year-old, and with the problem is, I think I find with people, that's where I was going with this, is people say, I can't do meditation. I can't quiet my mind. I can't this. I can't that. And that is the big one I find with people saying they cannot quiet their mind. So does your book start sort of with a beginner aspect or give suggestions on how to get to that natural state
Yeah,
of inner peace?
I would say the book is it kind of it broaches all abilities, but it does have in the introduction, it has the kind of meditation in a nutshell. And basically, what I would say would be, if you everybody can meditate, even if you're looking for, people are looking for thinking that they have to sit for 10 minutes or 15 minutes
Yeah.
or an hour or something, and that they've got the mind has got to be calm the whole time. No, meditation is a process, you know, that even what they're looking for, and I tell my students that you're looking for 1 second of clarity, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and then the ego will intrude again. So you're trying to pull yourself back into focus and look for another second of clarity. But there are techniques in how that you quieten the body. The body comes first. So you're quietening the body by doing any sort of exercise at all to try and get the static out of the body.
Okay.
Do some deep breathing. I'm not, given specific things here because not everybody does yoga, but most people go for a walk. You know, something that would clear the body of the static. You know, if you're going for a walk, then barefoot is a good one.
Yes.
But if not, if you're not barefoot with shoes, and visualize that the static is going down through the soles of the feet and into the ground. It's
Mm-hmm.
being absorbed by the ground. And if you're barefoot, you are visualizing the same thing, but you're also receiving the negative ions from the earth, which
Mm-hmm.
is extremely calming and healing for the body and for the mind. So you're whatever you do, whether it's a few yoga exercises, whether you're going for a walk, whatever it is that you do, or just a few stretches, lifting the arms above the head and breathing
Mm-hmm.
in, get the body, first of all, released of some of its static. And then you're focusing in on the breathing. You're allowing the body to come into a seated posture, whatever that might be, whether you're in a chair or sitting cross-legged on the floor. There's no ego trip here. It's what can be comfortable so you don't need to fidget for 10 or 15 minutes, whatever you've got. And you're using the breath. Now, there's several breath techniques that you could use, but a simple one would be where you observe the length of the inhale and you make the exhale longer.
Okay.
So there's no great wealth of knowledge needs to be done to do that. If you change the ratio of the breath, i.e., you make the exhale longer, then you very quickly start to change the brain waves. We bring the brain waves from beta, which is the normal
Mm-hmm.
state of waking consciousness, into alpha, which is the sleeping consciousness as we slide into sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Alpha is also where we move into REM. We've got this, the rapid eye movement state
Mm-hmm.
during dreaming. But for meditation, we're wanting to pass through alpha without becoming so drowsy that we lose that alert and awakeness. And we're moving into the deeper states of meditation. So the brain waves become longer and slower if we focus on the exhale becoming longer. And then we can do some focus of the mind. So the
Mm-hmm.
mind is going to be not blank, but focusing on something. So you could be focusing on visualizing a beautiful flower.
Mm-hmm.
You could be focusing on perceiving a light on the brow. You could be focusing on, if you're using a mudra, like the Jhana mudra, you're touching forefinger and thumb, palms facing up, as if to be receptive. And you could focus on the sensation between forefinger and thumb, but there's a focus of some kind, and but the technique gets you into that calmer mind, calm, stable, upright body.
Mm-hmm. So Dave says, I agree, Jenny. We have to get the energy to move in the body. This really allows for higher spiritual awareness. The heart, mind, and body all have to be working together. Absolutely, I agree. So, now I have a good friend. I don't know if you might know him or not, Augie Nost.
No.
He's originally from Norway. He lives in the United States, and he has a show called Broadcast Team Alpha with Nori Love. And he's been on my show quite a few times, and he's a great proponent. And I really do believe in many things he teaches, but the mastermind, when two or more minds are focused on the same thing, you can increase the energy, if you will, to help bring it to fruition or manifestation. And people, because he's been meditating for years, and I believe during one of his meditations, he believes he had a universal download, like all of the knowledge of the universe in seconds. And I was trying to get him to explain it. But my point I mentioned this is he had said, he suggested that for meditation, now you've got a different method, and I love that you've shared what you have here, because I think it's important for people that maybe, they're not able for whatever reason, whether it's their own belief system or what, that wouldn't work, or what have you. But and please, I don't say that with any disrespect, but the reason
No,
he
that's
suggested
fine.
this was, and you made me think of it when you mentioned focusing about a light on the brow. He suggests when you close your eyes to focus on the inner eyelids, but do you remember those pictures back in the late 80s? I think it was early 90s, where they just looked like a bunch of static lines. But if you could unfocus your eyes, the picture would reveal.
Yes.
That's what he gets you to do with your eyes, but bring them almost midline while your eyes are closed. You're not quite cross-eyed, but you're aligning, he says, midline in the brain. And he explains it much better than I do. And some people actually really found it helpful. One thing I am going to ask you, since you're a big proponent of it, have you heard of brain yoga?
Brain yoga.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, I'm going to send you this because I never heard of it either. And the magic eye, Dave says. He was the one that introduced me to this. I have a son with severe autism, and what they do is they've been using this, I guess. It takes about 30 seconds to a minute in the morning. And it's just a certain, I don't know why they call it yoga, because it isn't really yoga movements, but it's a certain way you move your hands and your arms and what
Oh
have you.
yes, I do. I do
Okay, so
know
you
it.
do know
I
it.
do know
Okay, I
it.
thought you
It's
would.
what's it called? It's a kind of kinesthetic penis. Oh, geez.
It'll come to you. He told me about it to try. You know, I haven't been able to talk my son
Brain
into.
gym. That's what it's called.
Is it brain gym?
That's what we
Okay.
call it in Scotland. Yeah,
Okay.
it's the series, and it's to do with the idea of it's taught in schools.
Not here.
Well, it's
Should
kids have
be.
got they do it in
Should be.
schools to try and get them to cross the midline of the body.
Yes.
So some kids, if they've got kind of visual disorders and things like that, they'll take a pencil, and if they're taking it to, from the right hand, if they're going to use it on this side of the body, they move it into the other hand. There's that kind of blankness somewhere. Anyway, they get them to draw a dot on a bit of paper, and then they've to do the same movements with the two hands. So you're doing like a figure of 8 with the two hands.
Yeah, that's I think what it was. Yeah, because
and then they're getting them to do the dot and cross the midline. So
yes.
you're using your dominant hand, and you're coming through the dot on the paper and coming back through left to right, right to left. And then they try it with your non-dominant hand, and you're doing the same movement.
Yeah, it's supposed to bring the brain halves together in the midline. Yes. And I think the research he had sent me, he did a video on it. I'll try to remember to send it to you after quickly. But it, like for stroke victims and, children like my own son with autism or what have you.
Children with dyslexia as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, dyslexia.
I used to be a teacher, you see, in education, and I use this.
Okay.
That was my career.
Okay.
In my third dimensional world.
3D world. Your muggle job.
You know how you've got the letter. I'm just trying to see if this goes the right way.
I know you got to think backwards, right?
I've got to think backwards. Okay, so it's A, and then you've got if you want to do P, you're up and down, and then if you want to do D, it's round, up, down, flip, and the other one was Q, so it's the same round, up, down. Okay, so you're doing the same movements. But that's great for kids with dyslexia because you've got the same starting point, and you can use that in that same exercise, which is to go round, crossing the midline, like the dot where you've got the paper, and then you can start to go up, down, round on the figure of 8, up, down, round in the figure of 8.
Because that's what he was talking about, this series of 30 seconds to a minute exercise every morning to do it.
It really works. It makes amazing differences. There were other exercises that were like, I'm just uncovering my ears. It's kinesiology. That's the word I was trying to say.
Okay.
It's like pulling on the lobes of the ears, uncurling the ears and tugging.
Yeah.
Right. So you're doing this about 3 or 4 times. So you get the kids to do this just before maths.
Oh. Do you think it's acupressure too? That it unlocks?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And until the ear itself starts to become, the inner ear becomes warm.
Oh.
And then that's the brain that's switched on for maths. It's amazing difference. The kids are just so, alert.
Wow.
And how long did that take? Less than a minute.
Nothing at all. And I think it's so important. And, like even with my son, and with no disrespect, he's 24. He was just in here at the beginning of the show. If you see me go like this, because he was talking, he knows my show was on. But he's 24, but with no disrespect, he's like at that precocious age of a 5 to a 7-year-old. So, I don't know if he's ever going to progress past that, but he's brilliant in some areas. But my whole point is, trying to, I'll never know what it feels like because I'm not experiencing it myself, but with the knowledge of the brain that I have, for example, to teach him his phone number. It didn't matter what we did. And it hit me, probably was spirit back then. And I didn't realize it was like then we teach them a different way. We use a different part of the brain. So I'm a terrible singer, but we made up a song for the phone number. And by singing it, he memorized it. He still knows it to this day, his old phone number, and he'll still sing it. But the thing is, it uses different parts of the brain. And
Yes.
the reason I mention that is because with meditation, I think the further and deeper that we go with meditation, I think that anything is limitless. I don't know, what's your thought? Because of the gifts we can unlock, that's part of my message is we have so many gifts and we are so powerful. And I don't say that from an ego sense, but the things that we've been told are never possible are possible. I believe we did it centuries ago, and we just need to unlock the key. What's your thoughts on that?
I think you're absolutely right. And it's interesting what you say about using different parts of the brain,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember reading some research about different states of being. So some
Mm-hmm.
people that perform well under the influence of alcohol,
Yeah.
drugs that most people would that would be a hindrance, but some people, they actually perform well because
Mm-hmm.
they've learned to operate through that state of consciousness. I
Mm-hmm.
can't vouch for how that is for myself, but
Me
um,
either.
no,
There's people I know probably or have met in my lifetime that, yes, I would agree with that.
but yes, it's very interesting about using different parts of the brain, because we're only using, a tenth of
Mm-hmm.
our normal waking consciousness. We're only using a tenth of the possibility of what the brain can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on meditation, but most people describe, and science has proven this to be, by using probes on the head,
Mm-hmm.
the the brain of a person that's deeply meditating in the states of like delta,
A
moving
theta.
really, really
Mm-hmm.
deeply in meditation, the whole brain's lit up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a light bulb.
Mm-hmm.
There's, whereas in normal waking consciousness, we've got flashes here, there, we've got
Mm-hmm.
some areas of the brain that are more lit up than others. But in actual fact, we use the whole brain for um, doing activities. It's just that some areas are more lit up than others. But as someone that's a stroke victim, they
Mm-hmm.
have to learn to reuse the brain in a different way. They have to
Mm-hmm.
learn to speak using a different part of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
The brain is the most amazing facility. It's
It
been
is.
neuroplasticity teaches us that the brain is malleable, it's changeable, it grows new neurons every day.
Mm-hmm.
There's this idea in the past that as someone became older, that somehow their brain closed down and they were able to do less. But in actual fact, we do produce more neurons. We just have to give it the opportunity to be stimulated in order to, or use our willpower. Your
Mm-hmm.
willpower can make changes.
Everything you have said, I agree with 100%. And you're right. It's not just children who can grow new neural pathways. We all can. Or, that's part of, I don't mention it often in the show, but I'm also a medical intuitive. And coming from a big pharma background, not that I subscribe to it, I always look for something natural or not full of a lot of chemicals if possible. I mean, if it was life threatening and you had to go to the emergency, obviously. But my whole point in saying that is I truly believe that the human body is capable of healing no matter what it is, but because of either belief system, trauma, and I'm talking mental, physical, spiritual, or what have you, that we end up storing these pockets of energy and they become dis-ease. And for example, I have a cavity medication I have to take. It causes cavities. Now, the first thing we would do is go to the dentist. Well, being on a pension now and living in Canada, well, the prices are up all over the place. But anyways, it's an expense right now that I can't incur. So I did some research. There are people that can heal cavities, and I can tell you what I'm working on and what I'm working with, it is indeed healing it. Now, they tell you that's not possible. I have seen medical miracles that it defies explanation. It's because of will, like you said, or
Yes.
belief system, or what have you. I think we are so incredible as human beings, but because we've been led to believe that it's not possible since infancy, that it becomes ingrained. It's almost like you have to unwind it once you start to awaken, if you will. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's actually quite interesting that you're talking about the teeth because I remember I watched or some research on, um, say, when a root canal treatment's put in,
Mm-hmm.
invariably within a few years, it's supposed to kill off the nerve in the tooth.
Yeah.
But within a few years, that the root canal treatment will only last up to about 10 years, and then
Mm-hmm.
the tooth needs to be removed. And they were saying, well, why is this? Because it should be, but you've killed the tooth
Mm-hmm.
really by taking out that nerve. And it's not by taking out the nerve itself, it's because there's there's all these little channels that run through.
Yeah.
Were you reading about that as well?
No,
And
but I know there is all these little channels. I'm
all these
wanting what
little
you have to say.
channels that because you've done a root canal, you've blocked all those little channels from bringing health giving, you know, properties. I'm not a scientist and I don't remember the details, but I thought, oh my goodness.
We're all not scientists here, so you're explaining it beautifully. Yeah.
And I thought, oh wow, that really means that you could heal your tooth.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
remember I was stuck once, and this is not so much as healing my tooth. I had an abscess and I was away on holiday, so I had no access to a dentist. And I thought, well, I have to do something about this. God wouldn't have put us here without giving us some facility to cope or, something to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it came to me intuitively that all I needed to do was to come in through the back of my head, use my energy hand, my astral hand,
Mm-hmm.
come in through the back of the head, and I'm squeezing the pituitary through the back of the head. The
Wow.
pituitary is the master gland that releases all the pain killing, the endorphins.
Endorphins, yes.
Yeah, but it releases painkillers. So I thought I'll squeeze it, and then if the pain was on the left, then I'm releasing my fingers to the left to
Mm-hmm.
see
To
whether the
channel it. Mm-hmm.
channel where it goes left or right. I tell you, it is like two squeezes of mental squeezes of the pituitary
I
gland, and the
love
pain was
it.
gone. And this was an abscess that any pain, cold, or pressure,
Mm-hmm.
I was through the roof. Gone, no pain whatsoever.
I'm going to remember that because what happened with me, and I have had an abscess. I had beautiful teeth until I hurt my back, no more dental coverage, and then the medication I'm on. And I was seeing this fantastic doctor. I don't have her anymore, but she was phenomenal. She's from Pakistan. And her husband, I forget how we used to have the most interesting conversations, her and I. I always ended up I didn't mean to hold her up, but we'd end up talking about many of the things we're talking about right now. And her husband was just a little tiny slip of a man, had, I think, his doctorate in homeopathy and all these other natural healing channels. But because he couldn't read and write English properly, what a shame. He wasn't able to work in the field well here. And she had said he'd also had 3 heart attacks, and she's an internal medicine specialist. And she said he had an abscess that was like the size of a small melon, if you will. And they wanted to put him on the operating table and drain it immediately. And she said, absolutely not. Like, I don't know if he would wake up. So and again, this came in handy and I remembered it. She mentioned that what he he knew what to use. They used apple cider vinegar. Now, I'm not diagnosing anybody. I'm not giving out medical advice. I'm just sharing something for our listeners. So she said he used apple cider vinegar with the mother in it for mouthwash 5 times a day, put a bit of warm water. She said the next day it came from this size down to a golf ball, and the next day it was gone. And it works. It does. I've tried it. So there you go.
Well, do you know, we all need to have these little kernels of
Yes.
store-covered medicines that we can store away in our brain, just in case we need
Mm-hmm.
something. I mean, you could be stranded, you know, like I was,
Yeah.
away in the wilds and unable to get to a doctor, and you've got something that you can apply in that
Mm-hmm.
moment, you know, just to help yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I believe firmly in that homeopathic medicines,
Absolutely.
but also that in very close to where you are at any time, there's going to be a plant that you can apply that is going to be the very thing that you need. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So having a store cupboard knowledge of just a few things, you know, it's
Yes.
a bit like you've got a first aid kit that's going to have, you know, sticking plaster as I was going to say a banana, I mean a bandage,
Yeah. Yeah.
some antiseptic cream, blah blah blah,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but to have a few things that you know that are going to work. For instance, dandelion.
Oh, I was just talking about this with my partner, Dell. He has a show on Thursday nights here. You may hear from him. He's probably going to want to have you on his show, The Delicious Recipe, because Gavin shares with us. But go ahead with the dandelion, because we were just talking about this the other day, him and I.
Well, it's actually got so many properties, you
Yes.
know, but you have to look at the 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 properties that the plant has that it displays, because that gives you an indicator on what it's going to do for you. So, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, for the dandelion, it's going to come up through a wee crack in the pavement in the sidewalk. You're going to get dandelions appear everywhere, absolutely
Yes.
everywhere. They're pernicious. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no stopping them, and the roots go way, way, way down.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives you an idea that it's actually a powerful plant, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they're everywhere, I mean, literally everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
that means that you can possibly pick one up, although you have to be careful when you pick them up, that you're not where dog walkers are and not where perfumes are, you know, that sort of thing. But
I
yeah,
hear
but
you.
the leaves, the aerial parts can be used for uh, like uh, bladder infections and that sort of thing. It's very good for cleansing the body. It's got loads of other properties. I was hearing that it was anti-carcinogenic, but I
Oh.
don't know that. I don't know all the ins and outs. I just have a rudimentary knowledge, but I have some 3 tomes that I go to. I've got this is my herbal medicines library,
Mm-hmm.
and there between one of them, I'm going to get what I need. The Ross Tratner book, which is it's a very old book, I think. Ross Tratner.
Tratner. I'm going to have to write this down.
Yeah.
I'm
Anyway,
writing it down.
it's very
Maybe I'll get you
prescriptive.
to send me the names if you wouldn't mind, and then I'll post them on this show for people. How's that, Jenny? Would that
Yes,
work? Okay, good.
that sounds good.
Okay, so
Yeah,
Ross, and then what's the other two?
I don't know off the top of my. Oh yeah,
Oh,
one I do know. It's the Neil's Yard herbal book.
okay.
So this is a kind of commercial tome,
Okay.
like
Oh, I
big
got that.
thick book. And it's got plants from all over the world. But I mean, Neil's Yard will be able to order you, or
Mm-hmm.
you can order in plants. I've got a herbal medicine, uh, like a firm that's in Glasgow. It's the Woodlands Herbs, and I just phone them up
Oh,
and I say, "Can I have this?" Because I've looked up my medicine books,
yeah.
and I say, "Can I have this?" And it's in the post, and it arrives the next day. It's fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, we don't quite have that luxury. Where I live in Canada, well, the listeners have heard before, but I live smack dab right in the middle of Canada. I'm about 35 minutes away from Minnesota border in the US. And if you've heard of Minneapolis, Minnesota, I'm about 6 hours north, and the city I live in is called Thunder Bay. So it's right on the biggest of the Great Lakes, Lake Superior, but it's almost equal distance to the west coast, to the east coast, to where. So anybody that travels from one side of Canada to the other has to come through my city, or if they want to go down to southern Ontario or the US through here, they would make a stop. So, but my point is, we don't have a particularly long growing season. We do have long winters.
Oh yes, yes, but I'm talking about dried
I
plants.
knew you
You know,
probably were.
they're not growing them.
Hmm.
They're merely supplying them, if you
I
know
hear
what I
you.
mean.
Hmm.
But they've
No,
got a
but I meant
very
to get them. They're a little bit
yeah,
more difficult where we are,
yes,
that you wouldn't get them next day. Could you get them? Yes. And it never hurts to have that knowledge because you work in healing as well, don't you?
yes.
I thought so.
I do sound healing with tuning forks.
Well, you're going to have to come back and talk about that because I have some tuning forks and I'm just getting into that. This is my new book I showed last week, and it's not quite the one I wanted. One of my close friends in Atlanta, hi, Leanne. It's called Dowsing and Self Healing, and it's the book, but I couldn't get the full book. So, what it ended up coming was just the techniques, which is kind of nice because it just tells you different healing techniques. It's written by Henry Dowser. I haven't been able to go through the whole thing yet. Now, the book I use a lot. I love it. I all the time I use it. It's called The Secret Language of Your Body by Ina Segal. And it gets into how to activate your higher self, colors to work with, emotions to clear, both positive and negative. And I find it very, very effective. So I work with that quite a bit, but I'm getting into sound healing. So we got to talk about your book. I could talk to you all day here. We're supposed to talk about this new book. What else do you want to tell me about your book? Like, so could a beginner use this, for example, listening that's never, or why should someone meditate? Let's start there because a lot of people think, well, that's just for people that are hippy dippy, and no disrespect to yoga. Yoga is amazing. But for people that have never heard of these modalities before, why would they do it? And could a beginner start utilizing your book?
Well, meditation is, I mean, it's most people do meditate at
Yes.
some point or other, but they maybe don't know that they're meditating. You know, when you allow yourself to come into calm, um, I used to meditate as a child. I think when I used to stare out of the big Victorian windows in the school
Mm-hmm.
and stare into the blue sky, and
Yeah.
I'd become all peace and calm, and then I'd come back into it's like, oh right, I'm back now.
Back to real life.
But I just kind of zone out for a little bit on some other state of being, but or become absorbed in something. You know, you've got a power of concentration. Other people, they really enjoy going for a walk and become into a meditative state walking. And I don't really mean that they're glued to their phone at the same time. I prefer when I'm not listening to anything. It's a
Mhm.
state of quietness, so there is a silence that goes with it. But anyway, yes, the book deals with why you should meditate because it
Yes.
brings you into a state of calm. That's one of the first kind of health benefits that you get is that a calm body means a healthier body. A calm mind means a healthier thought processes, healthier state of balance of mind.
Okay.
So, yes, I think meditating is a way in which you get immediate benefits of body and mind, but the main goal of doing it is to tap into the deeper states of being to really find out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Not the body, not the mind, not the breath, not the feelings, not the personality that you've come here and that you kind of embody, but you're none of those things. To find out who you are behind it all. But in my books, I don't like flowery language. I like to keep things really simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's like straight to the point on things, so that people can really get to grips with it. I try and keep it as simple as possible so that it's suitable for folk that don't really know anything about meditation, and also those that maybe have been doing yoga or even some meditation techniques for a while. There's something for everyone in the book.
I love it because I talk about meditation quite a bit, and I use the analogies. Well, it's not an analogy. I believe it to be true. I mean, it's not just people in our fields that use meditation. CEOs of companies use it. Professional athletes use it. I was just watching, I've watched quite a few podcasts. Like I said, if I'm not in that quiet middle of the night state doing some meditation while I'm working. But I've studied near death experiences for about 40 years. And it just happened to come up on my YouTube feed. And I thought, well, this looks interesting. And I was listening. And I loved what she said at the end about, some of the messages that she returned from home, as she called it, as I do, going back home, um, or across the veil, whatever people want to call it. And part of the advice that it was suggested, if she was open to sharing, was it is so powerfully necessary every single day to have a period where you quiet the mind, because you're right, that's where you get these answers. That's,
Yeah,
people come to me asking, just really quickly, I was going to say, what's my life purpose? I'm stuck. These are the kind of things where you can really get some clarity and answers. Would you agree?
absolutely. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you once you've quietened the mind, then you move from a state of busy mind into a state of intuition. This is a state of just knowing, so that if you want to have a question to your inner self, then you
Mm-hmm.
just formulate the question and instantly the reply comes back and you
Mm-hmm.
just know.
Yeah, I know it's different for everybody, but I realize I've been hearing spirit my whole life. Do I hear voices? No, it's my own voice, but it's said a little differently. Said always positively, always with love, sometimes a little firmly, more firmly if I need to hear it. I always joke and say I have one naggy spirit guide that just will repeat it over and over and over and over and over. It's like, yes, I heard you. So, you like you said, the knowing that you know that this was the answer to your question. Maybe something seemed impossible. You didn't know where you were going to get the answer from. And I always say, where people will say, I got that stroke of genius or what it is. Well, in meditation, I believe that's sort of what you're talking about. You get that stroke of genius, the answer, and it's the answer, right?
Yeah, you just know, and it can be really simple. You know, that's when you know you've got your soul self that's giving you the message, because it makes it so
I like
simple,
that soul
and
self.
suddenly you are just like, all right, okay, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if there's an element of doubt that creeps in, that's the ego self trying
Yes.
to reassert itself. But that initial, oh well, that's it, I can do that. That's a route that I can take.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I can do, and you just know it.
Do
So
you cover things like meditating with crystals and things too? Because I know, myself included, I've had some wildly incredible experiences, not in a negative way, powerfully positive with the addition of crystals, for example.
not really,
Hmm.
because I mean, I've had a great interest in crystals.
Hmm.
You know, I remember I bought a Lemurian crystal. You know, it's like
Hmm. I
Varco
know it is. Yeah.
striations up the side, and I
Yeah.
spent ages meditating. It's about 6 inches long. It's a incredible thing with
Hmm. I,
markings down
I
the
think I
side.
have one here. While we're talking, I think I have one. I have crystals everywhere around here. Go ahead, carry
I
on.
spent ages meditating with this
Hmm.
thing, and it just wouldn't open up for me. It's
Maybe,
I,
maybe it wasn't the right one. I think this one's a Lemurian.
yeah.
It's got the striations. This is I think it's fairy aura, or no, this is the angel
On the
aura.
side,
Angel.
it's not the striations on the inside, it's striations on the outside, like a barcode on the outside.
See, no, I've always been told it was on the inside. So isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it was Canadian Jade and Jewel. You know, heard of Jade and Jewel?
I don't think
It
I
was him that
have.
taught, he does courses on Lemurian crystals, and he says there's
Okay.
barcodes on the outside. And I bought it in the crystal shop as barcodes on the outside. But anyway,
I love it.
the
I
thing
love
is
it.
that at one time I couldn't work with crystals. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go
You're too
near them.
sensitive.
Yes, because they
Mhm.
sang. They were too much energy, and now they seem like stones. They don't have they don't sing, they don't talk, they don't, it's like I'm in a different space.
I hear you.
They don't resonate. But I tried to work with crystals, but it's obviously not my thing.
And that's okay because, like I say to people, even with the gifts that we have as human beings on this planet, some people might be natural born athletes, some people with numbers, some people natural born leaders or painters or what have you. We all have different gifts. And I believe that that goes along when it comes to the spiritual or esoteric side as well. I
Yes,
really believe that.
it just wasn't my thing. Maybe in a past life I did, but not in this one.
These two actually, they're not real Vogel crystals. I actually have a friend that worked with Marcel Vogel, and he worked for, have you heard of Marcel Vogel?
No.
Okay, he worked with IBM. He was responsible, you know, that shiny mirror type finish that was on CD-ROMs for those of us that are older, they know what CD-ROMs are
Yes.
and DVDs. Well, when he retired, he had absolutely zero interest in crystals, but he was looking for a project to get into. And I forget what the reasoning is. I'll have to ask Dan again. But anyways, he realized how powerful quartz crystals were because they're used in old time watches, especially like to help power the battery and what have you. So he started experimenting with cutting various angles into the crystals. And a true Vogel crystal, like I said, my friend Dan Willis used to work with Marcel. He's no longer alive. Now this is last time I had Dan on. It was about a year ago. There's only one person in the world that knows how to cut a true Vogel crystal, and you would pay for it probably tens of thousands of dollars. But my whole point is this is just a tiny one, but it's got all these like angles cut into it.
Yes.
When I use this, it actually gets hot and starts to vibrate. Same as this one. This is a Super 7 where I live. It's well known, or a Melody Stone. And it actually has a red pieces in it that'll just go fiery hot. But again, that's my thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like you said, you do sound healing or this incredible book about meditations. And that's the beautiful thing I think about, if you will, being in Earth School right now, living here, is we find the people I think we're meant to work with. And what you do might complement something I did or what someone else does. I don't know. What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different modalities we could get into.
Hmm.
Sound just makes sense to me.
I love it.
I feel the difference when uh, I use the tuning forks. They can clear mental clutter straight away.
Hmm.
If you were going to buy one tuning fork, it would be the Om tuner,
I
which
have one. I
have
haven't
you?
even learned what it's. Oh, just over here. I'm not sure.
I've got
Like I
them
say,
just.
I found it and picked it up because I knew that in one of these days I was going to come in to meet either somebody or work with a tuning fork. It came with a CD-ROM and all kinds of stuff. It's in one of my boxes over there. Hmm.
Yeah, they're amazing. They really just. I mean, the Om tuner can be used to balance both hemispheres of the brain, so you're listening on either side, and
Hmm.
really it brings the whole head into balance. It can clear static out of the body. There's a whole series of things that just one tuning fork can do.
So it would be a good precursor then if you had to, if you couldn't say get outside to move the static in the body to get ready for meditation or what have you, then?
Yes, yes, you could use it around the body. Yes.
Wow. Wow, I'm gonna have to have you come on next. Well, I'll probably have you back on anyways. Usually, most people I have on here, I either get to know them well, or they keep coming back, or what have you. I'm just want to look like. I think we've covered a lot of this, but oh, this is a good question, and I don't always look at the questions, but um, it says, "Do you think that a personal meditation on peace can impact the entire world when it comes to, say, world peace?"
Absolutely.
Hmm.
I think that, yes, there's people that are doing amazing work out there in the world, but I don't feel that that's the role for everybody. And I think that we need to, as individuals, to meditate in order to do the greatest service that we can to the planet and to all the beings that are on this planet. That I'm not just referring to humans here. There's the animal and plant life and
Hmm.
a myriad of unseen beings,
Absolutely.
but to do the best that we can for
Hmm.
the planet. So your meditation then not doesn't it's not an act that's just going to benefit yourself. It's to benefit everybody. So you're meditating to drop into. You have to experience that peace within yourself and then amplify it.
Hmm.
So some people think of peace as like the negative, the opposite of war. War is one thing and peace is another. But I don't believe in that. I think that peace is a positive state of being in its own right, and that peace already exists. In some realm, peace already exists. I was talking about within your own, the microcosm of your own being, that state of peace already exists. So out in the macrocosm, peace already exists. You merely have to, and merely, it doesn't mean to belittle it in some way, because actually, there's work here that's involved in this, but is to drop into the peace within, amplify it, and send that piece of the macrocosm out through your small vessel.
But I believe that, like I always say, we have to focus on what we want to see, not what we don't, because especially I believe collectively around the globe, there's been such a feeling of negativity, division, anger, depression, sadness, and fear. And, every now and then, again, with talking to quite a few people off there around the world, you'll get somebody that'll have a news item and they'll share it. And whether it comes from an independent news source or of the legacy media, it generates the first feeling of fear. So it's one of the things, and I always say I have to walk the walk of the talk that I do, because if I'm going to say to you, we have to focus on what we want to see, not what we don't. Because I think, again, getting back to the mind, and I think that meditation can help us really start to focus our mind, is that we can pretty well manifest anything we set our
We
minds
can,
to.
and therein you've hit the nail on the head. Therein lies the danger on an untrained meditating mind, right? On a
Hmm.
mind that doesn't meditate, is that you're perpetually, like that fable of, the ever churning. How did the sea turn to salt? It was this salt um, grinder that constantly it was magically churning out salt all the time. Well, we are unwittingly churning out all these manifestations, and if your thoughts are negative, then you are adding to that mass consciousness of negativity unwittingly. You
I
know,
think that that's important because, there's so many people. Now, lately, I've heard a few people say words matter, but I always say our thoughts, our emotions, and our words are some of the most powerful forms of energy, right? So I
yes.
think you really hit the nail on the head here that, again, you get into mindfulness here, but really being mindful of what your thoughts and emotions and words are. Like you said, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. But on an untrained mind, for someone that doesn't have meditate, it's very hard to uh, have as you said, it's like a mindful state of watching what your thoughts are doing at any time so that they don't veer into the negative. The thing about yogic meditation as a discipline is that it cleanses the consciousness of the states of negative karma, the samskaras, the issues that we carry from lifetime to lifetime, of the karma that we've incurred gets cleansed, so that we're no longer unwittingly dropping into negative frames of mind. These become easier and easier to veer away from. So, and you said, why meditate? If I come back to your earlier question,
I'll highlight this when we get to the Dave's comment.
so if
Go
you're
ahead.
wanting to do a service for the planet, and if you're wanting to have spiritual growth, then I think meditation is the way.
Always say that, yes. Always including. And I remember when I was like this first learning too, and when I say first learning, everybody out there, no, I'm not the be all knowing. I will be learning to the day I leave this earth. I wouldn't even call myself an expert. I always jokingly say, if somebody tells you they're 100% correct or the expert of the experts, and you have a lot of experience, but as human beings, I believe we have the potential to not always be right. And I'll be learning till the day I die. I will. So, but when I first started, you get the same questions all the time as a mentor. How do I open my third eye? And what's the name of my guides? And, we're really enthusiastic. And I find that, and again, it could be wrong, but Spirit's always shown me the more we try to force it, the more difficult it becomes. We need to let it flow like water. And I call meditation our workspace. I really, truly believe it is.
Yes, it can be used for lots of purposes.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of kind of new agey meditations are they're as you said, they're a workspace. You're trying to cleanse some aspect of yourself, but yogic meditation also non-specifically, i.e., you're not thinking about that which you're clearing. You're merely just allowing the process, allowing the breath, allowing the focus to clear, because you can feel your consciousness changing. You can feel it elevating from the normal 3D consciousness. You can feel it elevating into those higher states of consciousness as you meditate.
Mm-hmm.
Those shifts of awareness become second place. Commonplace is what I want to say.
No, but when I say workspace, yes, when I'm mentoring somebody that's hoping, because I also believe every single person on this planet, should they have the desire to do so, like you just as inner peace is our natural almost way of being, if you will, we also have intuitive gifts. We have things like this, and for whatever reason or experience, somebody, whether it's even just a calling, chooses to pursue that avenue. But again, we go back to everyday life, because I don't want people to think that this is just for the new agey type stuff, because it's not. Again, like I said, bringing in a problem, I'm writing 3 books. I've got the outlines, and I know if I sat down in meditation and work with Spirit, they're going to give me some ideas and thoughts and all kinds of things I hadn't thought about. It's a practical daily, something for my everyday life. Or maybe you want to build the house of your dreams, or you need a new job. A lot of people are switching professions right now with the state of the world, and you don't have any idea of place to start. Quiet the mind, bring it in there, ask for some, if you don't believe, even if you have guides or angels or what, we all have a higher self, if you will, your subconscious, whatever you want to call it. And it's just so surprising the answers you will get that you haven't thought about. And again, I keep using the word muggle mind, but the word muggle, but it is, right? The ones we all think that our brain is the mastermind that runs everything, and it's really not. It's our subconscious that's on all the time, right?
Yes, it's the consciousness that's running everything.
Mm-hmm.
That that part of ourselves that is universal. It's not harmed in any way by anything that happens in earthly experiences. You know, if the body's harmed, our soul consciousness isn't harmed. We just transfer to from, you know, from this body into the kind of astral world. And
Mm-hmm.
then if we have issues that we need to work out, we come back in another body to work
Mm-hmm.
those out. So it's a continual process, but our soul consciousness is unharmed
Mm-hmm.
by any of the experiences that we have.
Yeah, it was a really interesting concept that I had this gentleman on a few weeks ago. We had pre-recorded, and he called Earth a school, which I believe it is. But there was somebody we were talking about. I had recently, it was either a video or I'd read something, and they were talking about, I believe they had a near-death experience. And as they were back home in heaven, across the veil, whatever people would like to call that, he said it all seems so simple looking back. It was like it was all a play. He said you could see all the actors, and if you will, it was my play because it was my life. Everybody had their own plays going on. He
Yes.
said you could see the other actors for the next scenes waiting in the wings, and he said it was that simple looking from that perspective. So, you know, if you think about it, I guess where I'm going with this is the 3D self versus who we really are. When you said about, you know, this, I forget how you put it, soul. You said soul.
Soul consciousness.
Yes, thank you, soul consciousness. And that's, again, I think 3D, our 3D self is who we are in humanity, but not really who we are in soul consciousness at 5D or higher, right?
Yeah, or higher, absolutely
Mm-hmm.
higher than 5D.
So I believe this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think then that it would be easier to get in better connection, if you will, or hear more clearly with daily meditation about our soul, who we are, who we really are, the soul, if you will?
Yeah, daily meditation makes a big difference because um, if you're only meditating sporadically, you're fighting against, you know, the ego's interruptions, the fact that you need to move the body because it feels itchy, it feels restless, blah blah blah, or the mind is all over the place. But the more you meditate, the more calmness there is. You know, you can, as you said at the beginning, you drop more quickly into
Yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
state of calmness, and then you can build from that platform into a stronger, deeper state of meditation. So persistence is absolutely paramount. You're not making any spiritual progress if you allow yourself to have an elevated state of consciousness as best as you can, and then you don't meditate for ages. You don't meditate for weeks or months
Mm-hmm.
because you've become immersed back again in the third dimensional reality or unreality. But
The Matrix.
meditation helps you to remember
Mm-hmm.
that this is just it's a dream. It is a play, and that you are the starring role in your own drama, just as everybody else is the starring role in their drama,
Mm-hmm.
and that all the characters, all the scenarios are carefully attracted to you
Mm-hmm.
to teach you some aspect of yourself, to either give you opportunities to be benevolent and kind, or to teach you some aspect of yourself that is still lingering, some karmic samskara issue that you're still holding on to, and to give you an opportunity to express that positive positively, you know, from a soul perspective, and not to react from the ego perspective. So it was interesting the other day. I found myself coming up. It surprised me actually because it was coming up, and it was that he was speaking to me. Oh, that is quite interesting in itself. It's like, oh, I've got a reaction here, and part of me wanted to be adamant and uh, to fight my corner, as it were,
Yeah.
And then I realised that actual fact this person wants a fight, so I'm not going to give that. This is a verbal tussle we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and on a point that was irrelevant. It wasn't some great big searching question. It was merely some mundanity of life, and I decided that I wasn't going to give that fight. I wasn't going to waste my energies, my focus, and
Mm-hmm.
destroy my inner calm
Mm-hmm.
by having that tussle. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, actually, I can allow them to have their opinion and allow them to have the last word. It doesn't ruffle my calm.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said that because I truly believe that anything can be contagious. So if somebody's angry and you match that anger, right? A lot of times it can be contagious. They talk about the boss has a bad home life, comes to work and dumps it on his employee who brings it home. It's kind of the same thing. So
It
working
is.
backwards with that state of calm, right? We could radiate that out in situations like this, depending on the person's intention. So if they really were looking for a fight, they're probably going to be pretty PO'd that you aren't the one that's going to fill their cup, if you will, because they
Yeah, I
want to
mean,
fight.
it's happened on a few occasions. I remember I was doing some holistic event, and I had some person stepped forward who I thought was making some serious point, and she wanted a serious discussion, but she didn't really. She just wanted to fight. She wanted to argue the toss.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realised that all she wanted was the fight, um, I just stood back, and I've just placed my hands in front of myself, just one hand in front of the other. Just wait. I just let her speak.
Mm-hmm.
So our tirade was about 5 minutes. I just stood there within my own bubble of calm and just
Yeah.
allowed her to vent.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, "Well, we'll just agree to disagree.
Yeah.
You have your opinions. They're yours, and I respect that."
That what a
And I
beautiful way
found
to
that
hand. Oh, go ahead.
I found well, we have choice in any moment as to whether to react or to choose to act wisely.
Mm-hmm.
And the universe is, I come back to your orchestrating characters to come in from the wings to teach you that next
Mm-hmm.
lesson, to give you an opportunity to say, well, universe is saying, well, have you learnt this? Let's see if you have.
Yeah.
And some innocent body is brought forward to to give you that opportunity to learn,
Mm-hmm.
prove that you've learned it.
I agree. Or, say somebody always saying before they incarnate into this lifetime, they've decided that maybe one of the lessons for their soul is to learn patience.
Mm.
And I believe this came from another one of my mentors, and I believe they're right, is, well, believe me, more than likely, you're not going to end up in some Zen Buddhist monk monastery to learn patience. You're probably going to get a lot of people pushing your buttons and what have you to challenge you to find ways to maintain your patience. Or like, I just love what you said there. You had a lot of wisdom, and that's what you shared there about the person wanting to just fight and vent. And like you said, you didn't choose to waste your energy, and the beautiful words that you shared with them at the end of it, they really couldn't fight with it because you weren't telling them they were right or wrong, just basically
No, I
were
mean
neutral.
everyone has their opinion based on their perspective, and
Mm-hmm.
that is their perspective of of life experiences, but also where they are in their spiritual development. And I think that we have to choose that which we resist wisely,
Mm-hmm.
because I'll come back to the statement I used at the beginning: that which we resist persists.
Persist. Mm-hmm.
So if you're wanting to have the universe presenting with the same things, you know, the universe will just keep presenting and presenting
Until you learn it.
until you learn it. I remember I used to have the lesson presented 3 times. I would go, oh, right, I see what you're trying to do. Now I will change. And then I decided to short circuit that and say, right, okay, the universe presents this 1 time and I learn it.
Okay.
So I'm not hanging about, and it presents 1 time, then I'll learn that lesson and move on.
Well, my lesson for me is if something shows up in my field more than 3 times in a short period of time, that's a message to me to pay attention to that. There's something in it, whether information, somebody I need to meet, something I need to learn, whatever.
Yeah, like that person that drops into your mind out of the blue that you haven't thought about for years, then they turn up.
Ooh.
No, I mean they turn up. You know, you get an email from them,
Excuse
a
me.
phone call from them, or you meet them in the street, or you know, you hadn't thought about them for years.
I want to apologize. I forgot, speaking of crystals, take my crystal off. If you were hearing that, it was probably hitting my microphone, and I apologize. I usually remember to take it off. So if you're listening on the replay and you're hearing this scratchy, that's my fault. You can blame it. His name is Justice. I have no idea why, but Justice, my Super 7, likes to be present. And it just coincides with my microphone here. I wanted to read some of Dave's comments here. Thanks for being here, and everybody else that's here. We don't always see them in the comments, but we appreciate those of you that are listening live and participating from all around the world. I want to remind people too, before I read Dave's comments, that say you've missed this live or you want to share this with somebody. We are carried wherever podcasts or talk radio is carried. So iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, SoundCloud, Podbean, YouTube, you name it. You can, I believe there's well over 200 different apps and websites where our archives are carried. So you can always find these show replays. So Dave says, I agree, Jenny. We have to, we read that already. He was talking about the magic eye, he mentioned. I think it had to do with energy in the body. And then he said, I highly recommend Cure Tooth Decay by, sorry, I gotta put my glasses on. One thing about getting older. By Ramiel Nagel, Nagel. I'll have to keep that in mind. And then he said, great explanation, Jenny. It does impact the world. We can all make a difference. And I agree, we can. And he's just talking when I had said that, you know, rather than trying to force something, especially when it comes to spiritual development, that Spirit had shared, you need to let it just flow. Just let it be. Just let it happen. Kind of like our natural way of inner peace. Like you said, it's always there. This is just, if you will, from our conversation, it seems like it's a tools and a roadmap about how to get there with your book.
Yes, I think so. Very much tool-based workbook.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So speaking of that, where can they get a hold of you, Jenny? Because like you said, you do healing work. You're an inspirational teacher. I think I saw artists. Did I see artists on your bio as well?
Yes, I do paintings.
Oh, I love it.
I don't know if you can see this one.
Oh my goodness, that's beautiful.
It was a part of the Alice in Wonderland collection that I did.
Oh,
This was the one
wow.
where I chose not to paint Alice in. It's called The Garden of Dreams, and it's an oil painting.
It's beautiful.
And I've got, it's difficult to move this camera.
I hear you.
Anyway, this one's it's a triptych.
Love the colors.
It's a dreamy woodland scene. Anyway, the picture's not very good. Yes, I'm an artist in days when I'm not doing other things.
Well, so where can people buy your book? Where can they get a hold of you? I'd love to have you come back on again too and talk about some of the sound healing. I was going there with a few of your spiritual experiences when you were younger that was mentioned here. But like I said, there's so much more to talk about. I'd love to have you back on. But in the meantime, like I said, where can they find you and buy your book?
Well, the book's on Amazon, so it's Awakening the Lotus of Peace on Amazon by Jenny Light. So anybody can buy it there. It's also in good bookstores, but definitely on Amazon.
Okay.
And you can get me at living-lightly.co.uk. So that's living-lightly.co.uk. So if
Okay.
you just Google Jenny Light yoga, then you'll get me.
Well, I actually have your website on the banner too. We always put that at the bottom if somebody has one, or if you're listening, you can feel free to get a hold of me or message me or Jenny. Jenny's pretty easy to find on Facebook. I found her or
Yeah.
anywhere else you're on. I know you're on other social media as well, right?
Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
am. I'm on most things. I'm on Facebook. I am Jenny Light on Facebook. I'm Jenny LGHT on Instagram, and I'm also Jenny Light on LinkedIn.
Oh, good. I haven't found you on there yet. I'll have to find you. Well, I want to thank you for being here. You're absolutely delightful. I have to say, Gavin has never, ever, ever sent me. I just know now if he sends me a guest, I say yes, 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 because everybody he has sent me all have written phenomenal books, delightful personalities, and you definitely fall in that category. I
Yeah, I
want to
think you've only scratched the tip of the iceberg.
I know we have. So I want to thank everybody for being here, whether you're listening on the replay or you've listened live. And I will be back same time, same space next week, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern. I forget who my guest is. I'm sorry, guys. I meant to check. But if you ever want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on Facebook under facebook.com/The Angel Rock. Say you've got a show idea, a question, maybe a guest you'd like to see on my show, or you want to book healing sessions or possibly a reading. That's how you get a hold of me. I very quickly have two groups on Facebook too. I have Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and then I have the Angel Rocker Tribe for many of the things that you and I, Jenny, have discussed tonight on there. So again, thank you so much. I can't wait to have you back on again. And
Well,
thank you
thank you.
everybody here who was live or listening, like I said, on the replay. So I send you all so much love and light, much gratitude, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. Thanks again, Jenny.
Thank you.